Hey everybody, welcome back for another video. Today we are going to be taking a look at an interview that I was able to do with someone that I have known for a very long time. Her name is Kelly. She and I originally met on a computer game, World of Warcraft, about 15 years ago, and she wants to talk a little bit about something that you may have seen on the news recently, specifically about UFO sightings, alien sightings, spaceships sightings, things of the sort. She has some thoughts about it and wants to go in depth more about it with you. So I am going to play the video of the social media post that I came across last week. I am also going to put all of Kelly's social media in the description below. If this topic or she as a person interests you and you are interested in following what she has to do on social media more, I do implore you to check out her pages. I am going to now put it on over to the video that she originally introduced this topic to, and then it will lead into the hour interview. Well, I hope this interests you guys, and I'll see you soon.
I'm coming out of the ship. I'm an alien, you're an alien, we're all aliens, and I'm finally having the courage to really just be open about that. This message is more for people who are not already working with the aliens as well, because most of you at this point that I work with closely already are yourself. But there are a lot of friends and family that I have that I was too scared to be more open about this, that you probably thought I just really like the ideas of aliens, like they're cute to put on a shirt or something, and you probably didn't realize that I actually was contacted by aliens several years ago and have been working very closely with them since. And I am wanting to speak up now because I feel called at this time when the earth is really ready to receive healing and integration from all people. And I want to share the wisdom and the healings and the teachings that these celestial beings have gifted me, because it's changed my life in every way possible. One of the ways that truly transformed my life is I was medically dependent on a giant bag of prescription medications just to breathe, because I had what I thought was an incurable lung disease that I never thought I would be rid of. I never thought I'd be able to breathe again on my own. And within 3 to 6 months of working with these alien beings and using the healings and the tools that they gave me, I was able to stop taking all of the medications, and I haven't needed them since. And it was basically like a miracle occurred. And I've wanted to share that so many times for so long, but I was scared, because how do you just go out and say, hey, I had an incurable disease and some aliens taught me that I actually could heal it, and I did it. But now I'm speaking up about it, and that's just one example of so many other ones that has been so life-changing. And most importantly, the love that they gave me ongoingly, it brings tears to my eyes. And this love, they're giving it to all beings already, but people just are not aware of it. They're surrounding the earth and they're here to help. And I am wanting to be a part of that wave of love that becomes contagious. If we open our hearts to beings that look a little bit different from us, we're opening our hearts to just more of who we are, because we're all one being. And that includes opening our hearts to other people on the planet who might look or be a little bit different. And I know a lot of you have also been abducted and had crazy things, and you haven't had the courage to speak up. And so now is the time. Hopefully I can inspire you to have the courage to do so as well.
So I remember seeing in your original video, you kind of said that this began in 2019.
Yeah, it was around when my friend Dylan, he died of an overdose. And at that point, I think I remember talking to you. I was super skeptical about all of this. Like, I knew my sister was into it and whatever. And I was like, we die. When we die, we're dead. Like, I was very atheist, and I was actually pretty miserable. But when he died, I could just feel like something in my house. Like, I could just feel like he was there and that he wasn't the only one. And so I started to get more and more open to it. And I kind of had like a big spiritual awakening where I felt much more connected, and I started becoming a lot more aligned, I think, with who I really am, like more interested in mindfulness and caring about other people, and like not just like hiding away in my house, like smoking pot and drinking and playing video games. Like it was just kind of shifted. And from what I've heard now from different other people who are into this stuff, they said 2019 was like a big wave of like awakening for a lot of people. And the ETs themselves actually said that they had an opening then to kind of send like a wave of like a wake up call to people, because the earth is like on a certain trajectory and people need to start waking up to what the heck's really going on, so we can like make a shift. So yeah, so after he died, and it was like gradual, because I wasn't sure still like if I was comfortable with it. And I remember like my sister telling me like, oh, like there are beings around you and they're here to help you, and like if you want, like they're here to support. And so I would just get like a little message, just like hearing a thought that clearly wasn't my own, or feeling like one time I felt like full body chills, like I was being electrocuted. It's something that my sister said and I could feel it. She was talking about like a past life that I had. And I felt it. And that was the moment where I was like, dang, like I'm not in Kansas anymore. Like that defied physics. Like that was totally weird. It was just like a feeling that I had. And it just kind of kept going from there. I kept having like out of body experiences when I slept, where I would be like having visions where I'm like actually watching my body, like, and I'm floating around my room. I'm getting more and more messages here and there. But when it really ramped up was around, let's see, 2022. I had this day and I'd just been done with a music festival and I was super depressed. And I was thinking, gosh, I really miss Dylan, my friend that died. And I was thinking, I remembered my sister said there's these beings that I guess just love unconditionally that are here to help. And so for the first time, I actually like reached out to them. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was just in my mind, I was like, hey, like, I think there are some enlightened beings around that just want to give me love. And then it was like the whole floodgates opened, because I, for the first time, was like, hey, like I'm inviting you into my life. And I got receiving all of these messages like telepathically, just these crazy feelings, these crazy visions that I was having. And it was just like this whole thing. They were telling me basically about who I really am, who we all are, like what this planet is. And they were telling me about why I was with my partner at the time and like what we were going to do in this lifetime, and just all of this information. And it just felt so true. It was like I was waking up to myself as who I really was, and like actually waking up from being in like a dream like my whole life. And it was really, really, really crazy for a while. And it still is, but for a couple of years there, it was like a major roller coaster, because I kept just like opening up more and more and more to them. Like one time I was just like in the kitchen and I was just like cooking one day, and it was really cloudy, and this is in Virginia, and I heard like a message in my mind, and they said, go outside, we have a surprise for you. And so I'm like, oh wow, am I going to see a ship or something cool? So I go outside and like to the corner, and like I look up, and it was cloudy and it was during the day, but I saw a triangle shaped like shadow coming down from the sky, and it was illuminated on the outside with like these rainbow lights. And so that was the first time that I saw a ship. And now at this point, I've seen so many, and I've seen so many beings and been working with them. And I do a lot of work with other people who are working with a lot of these same beings. And because at first when I was into this, I was like, wow, like who else knows about this? Like what's happening? And it felt very isolating. But over time, I found that people have known about this and been working with these beings for decades. I mean, centuries even. And then I found out like the whole government even knows about all of this. And it's like a whole thing. And I'm like, how did I not know any of this was happening? Which is still crazy.
What would you say is the difference between someone who interacts with these beings and someone who does not? Do you think that it is a mindset? Like, do you think it's about opening your mind and being open-minded, or like cutting off all the skepticism and being dubious of it?
So the crazy part is, and I've actually, so do you know what channeling is, for one will ask? Where it's like, that's how they communicate, and how they communicate. It's basically like they use your body as like a channel, and it's like they like come through you. So there are other people who communicate in this way, who've communicated to them in written books. And one of my favorites, who I know her now, her name's Lisa Royal Holt, and she wrote a book, and it talks about basically how this whole earth is like a school, and we come here to enlighten and awaken and have experiences and like go to the depths of our soul, and like we do crazy things like kill each other and then come back and reverse roles and whatnot. And that like it's like there's like a density barrier. We're up above, they're much lighter, they're much more ethereal. But here, like in the densification, our ego structure, it's like a part of us that's really designed to keep us to play this game. And it is like a game. And part of its game is to be skeptical of everything that it sees. And that especially when you start making contact with these beings, it's like that part of you will continue to keep you skeptical and say, oh no, that's not real, and like doubt it and doubt it and doubt it and doubt it. But really it's just your ego mechanism that's literally designed to do that so that you can stay here. Otherwise we would just like the game would be over, and like this whole planet is just a game. And so that really made sense for me, because I've always been super, super skeptical. Lisa Royal Holt, who talks about this, she is also super skeptical, and she studied psychology and whatnot. And so it was interesting that we had like a similar trajectory. And I was like, oh, I'm not the only one that was like really skeptical about a lot of this stuff. But then it's like over time, just the signs and the synchronicity, it's just like kept getting so big that it's like it blows all the skepticism out of the water. But part of the ways that you begin to make more contact is by choosing to be open, and like you have to open your mind to more of what you think, because the ego's mechanism is it tries to put walls around your reality that say, this is true, this is what reality is, I know what this is. And it doesn't want you to go beyond those walls. That's all it is. It doesn't want you to choose to open up your mind and see past what's there. And a good example that I used to explain to a lot of people is like they say, I don't know if this is truth or not, but this is what I've heard, that when the Mayflower and the Pilgrims came to America, the Native Americans, they had no concept of what a ship was. And so it was almost like they couldn't see it, they couldn't perceive it because it was so far out there. And the ETs say that there's ships and stuff everywhere. It's just that it's so far beyond what our consciousness can conceptualize as real that it's like we can't even perceive it. We can't even see that it's there. But the more that you open your mind to it, you can. And then I'll also say that this whole planet, because it is a school, and we've all basically been in like these breeding programs from the ETs for the entire time. So everybody here is like a hybridized being who has alien DNA from all of these different places. And everybody here has already agreed to be working with these ETs. It's just a matter of whether or not they're aware of that. But ultimately, over time, everybody is going to become aware, because this is already like what this is. It's like a planet that's created by alien beings. They bred humans and aliens, and it's like who we all are alien. We all have that in our DNA. And because it is a school, a lot of them, there are teachers. And so at some point, like it's like if this was a big play and a stage, and like we're all acting, we're playing these parts, but like eventually like the curtain's going to come up for everybody to see what all of this is. That's just a game, it's a show, it's a school, and it's not really quite as serious as we think that it is. And everybody's going to start waking up to more of these higher truths.
If ET's intelligence and what they're able to conceptualize is so far advanced than what we are able to do, and we are the ones that need to be opening our minds to different possibilities, what is the point of life, and what are we learning here that we don't already know?
I mean, that's a great point. A lot of them say, what is the point of existence? It's really philosophical, and it's really like for each individuated being consciousness to choose that. They say, like, we're all one being, we're all one consciousness, and we're not truly separate. Like if there was God, creator, whatever you want to call it, that we're all the same being. And it's no different how everything on the earth, every being on the earth is made of the same fundamental material from the stars, basically. It's that same idea. We're all like the same one being. And they say like this one being fragmented basically like into a bunch of disco balls to reflect back and have these different eyes, these different set of eyes to see in the reflection like who the heck they were. And that we're all we chose that as a collective consciousness to have these experiences in one way to see what the meaning is, to see what the point is. Because like, imagine if you're just like this infinite, eternal God being and you're just in existence and you're like, why did I come to exist? And then it's like, that's why we kind of create and we explore. And that's, in my understanding, that's the best understanding that I have. I'm sure from where they're at with their ultra high intelligence, they have so many other things, but like our intelligence, like you said, like we're just not there yet. So for me, that's how I've been able to comprehend like why do we exist at all, and why did we create this school? Really just for the experience. And from one perspective, from a more heart-centered perspective, there's so much love that's created on this planet that is a school. And I will also say that some people who know about the ETs and in general that they know this is a school, they think this is a kindergarten school. Like, wow, us humans, you must be really stupid. But the ETs say that this is actually like a master level graduate school, that not all planets that are schools are like this. There are kindergarten planets where everybody's a lot more unified, a lot more harmonious. But us here, we have so many different languages, so many different cultures, and it's representative more of like all of like existence of so many different ETs. And so we're here to really help integrate and see the part of us that exists in each person who looks different from us. Where some planets, they all speak the same language. They're all the same race, I guess you could say. And here it's not that way. But here we have a perfect opportunity through the deep polarity that we have, because there's deep war, there's deep separation, and there's a lot of suffering. And a lot of people, when they find out about these ETs and they find out this is a school, they're like, well, why are we having all of this? And like the planet's enlightening, then why the heck are we seeing all this play out in the world? But a part of it is that it's inspiring a ton of love that's ignited from each person when they see suffering that's happening. And everybody who is really triggered by world events, it's causing them to actually speak up and express themselves. And that is a choice that's made out of love for themselves, for their friends, their family, or a group of people that they care about, or somebody else in another country. And so in the deep contrast of polarity that we're in here in the school, in the Earth School, it like creates like an equal pull of love to bring us all closer. And in one perspective, although it is a school and we're learning about all of these things, probably one of the most important things I would say from a higher perspective is we're learning about how to be of service and how to love one another in this process of this super intense, difficult school.
Well, that's an interesting concept that you just kind of detailed out about the more different we are as people, the more, like, I guess basically the difficulty gets higher. So the more races you have, the more ethnicities, the more religions you have, it becomes, so it's kind of like a goal to make us as divided as possible, but then try to, over centuries and thousands of years, come back together as one.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like it brings a bigger alchemical energy. Like if you think about, what is that thing that goes back and forth?
Pendulum?
Pendulum. Yeah. So it's like a pendulum, like think of how much energy it generates when it's going back and forth. Like, and if you could think about polarity in that way, like white, dark, it's generating more energy. But if it's like hovering around the middle, it's not really moving and it's kind of stagnant and it's not generating as much energy. So the stark polarity and contrast we have between each other, or at least that we perceive between each other and between the events that are happening, we're generating much more of a momentum for change. And in this way, it's going to be enough momentum for change that will push us towards a new era of enlightenment.
Interesting. So in terms of what you want to do with talking to other people about this, making your own YouTube channel, I see that you've created an event that will be in person this Saturday. What will the what detail that out a little bit? Like, what do you plan on doing? What do you plan on working with people, and what's the goal?
So I've already been working with people one-on-one and basically giving messages and wisdom and healings from these alien celestial beings. And by alien, I don't just mean aliens with physical bodies. There are, I guess you could say, alien celestial beings who have enlightened beyond having a body, and I work with all of them. But I've been working one-on-one with a lot of people and in more intimate groups to give them these healings and these teachings. And really it's just to help people because of course these beings have so much compassion and unconditional love that they want to give to us, because a lot of them, they can see our future, they can see our past, they know everything about us, and they love us all the same, and they truly do just want to help us. But because it's a school, and this is a question I get from so many people, why don't they just come down and fix everything for us if they're so enlightened and they're so loving and they're so intelligent? It's because it is a school, and they don't want to take that experience from us. They don't want to rob us that experience of knowing that we don't need them to save us, because they're not here to save us. They're here for us to view ourselves as equal to them and to rise up to the challenge of awakening and loving each other on this planet and evolving our science in a harmonious way. And so they have so much that they want to offer, but it has to be with our consent, which would make sense that they would hover around and give me help from here and there before I really started having a lot of contact with them. But it was only when I opened up and I asked for their help that they really came through, because they work with consent. It's a universal law, I guess you could say, that they will not interfere with a whole planet and their development. Similar to on this planet, how if we have like a tribe, like on an island and one of those kinds of things, and anthropologists kind of have to give space and not interfere with the natural tribe and its development. And so it takes consent and it takes an invitation. And so for me, I've kind of volunteered myself to be a messenger in that way. And for other people who are looking for help, that feel like they don't feel quite at home here, or like their life is a mess, or that they see that the planet is a mess, or that they're depressed, or they have health problems. We have so many things that are on the rise, physically, mentally, emotionally on this planet, and people are looking for help. And so I've become like a conduit for that help to come through, of course, from myself and my own experience, but also from these beings. So I do a lot of different workshops in this regard. And the one I have on Saturday specifically, that one is meant to be an introduction to a lot of what I'm talking to you about now, but going into a little bit of a more of a deep dive about like what's the situation with the government, like what all do they know, how long have they known, what happened there, what's going on with the spaceships. There's a lot of interesting things the ETs have said about the spaceships and the government that I'm going to talk about. A lot about abductions for people who feel like they've been abducted and they want to know what happened there. And I'm also going to do a group contact experience where I've been trained on how to help people to make contact with these beings themselves, because this is not something that's just limited to special people. That's something that I learned. This is something that everybody has access, because in one way, we're all one consciousness, we're all one being, and we can connect with every other being that exists, in anything that somebody else has, like you can have too. And that's something we're here to learn. And so there's nothing special about me and that I can contact these beings. It's really just that I chose to be open to that, and it was kind of showing up for me. And so if anybody else wants to make contact, they definitely can too. And it's something that I'm here to do, is to teach people how to open up to make that contact themselves. And of course, the biggest reason I want to do that is because for me, it completely changed everything about my life. I mean, you know me, I was drinking a lot. I was getting stoned a lot. I wasn't really working. I was in college for like forever, just doing this, doing that. I was doing everything except what I wanted to do, which was work on music. I had so many unhealed things. And I was suicidal for a lot of that. And although it's been really transformational and difficult since I started working with them, it's like I finally have found myself, and I found my voice, and I found higher perspective and ability to live here with the pain and the trauma of existence, because it still is. Like, it's not like my life is perfect, but I have all of the tools to handle it. And also I know more of why this is happening. So I'm not just like, why did my dog have to die? Like, now I have a higher perspective, and I know a little bit why that happened. And I know why I chose the parents that I did, and why I had such a hard time as a kid. And just having that perspective and these understandings that I've learned so much from them, it makes life so much more harmonious, and it puts me in a much better position to want to and to be able to give to other people. And I think on this planet, the way that we're really going to heal and integrate things with the climate, with the wars, with the economy, with this and that, it's going to have to be from a place where everybody starts wanting to give to other people, give to the world. And that could be anything, just like speaking up, expressing what your perspective is, what your wisdom is, sharing your life experience, writing a book, writing a song, whatever it is. And I could never do that before. And now I'm starting to begin to do that. And I want to invite other people to do the same.
Interesting. You were also, in addition to, the smoking and the drinking and all of the coping mechanisms that you used to take part in, you had a lot of medical issues.
I did. Yeah. At my worst, I mean, I was in the ICU for like 8 days once, like hooked up to all these breathing machines. And yeah, I wasn't sure how long I was going to live or what my life was going to be like. They didn't really know what the heck was going on. And yeah, that lasted for about, maybe.
I mean, it was to the point where you
It
didn't
was
even
several
really want
years.
to, you didn't want to travel. You were like, didn't know if you were going to work. I mean, it was.
Yeah, so that was about 5 years. Yeah, almost 5, 6 years that I was going through that. And yeah, that was rough. The worst of it, I was seeing a doctor probably every other week just for tests, because I wanted to know what the heck is wrong with me and what can I do? I don't want to do this anymore. I carried like a giant bag around. I has like given myself some kind of weird experimental injection that they don't even know what the heck it does long term. But I was like, heck, I'll try. I'll try anything. All these inhalers, all of these drugs. Yeah, it was an absolute nightmare. I mean, it's kind of funny because my current partner, I was still carrying that when we first met, and he would talk about how like at night, like I guess I'd gotten used to it, but throughout the night, like he had to get used to the fact that I get up, can't breathe, I have to like use all these inhalers, and that was a thing. It was just like every night on and on and on, and there were so many limitations in my world. Like I'm like, I can't go here at this time because I'm worried I'm going to have an asthma attack. I can't do this. Like one time I was at the airport and I didn't have an inhaler, stupidly. And I was running late for a flight. And so I ran across the airport. Of course, I had an asthma attack. I didn't have my inhaler. So then they had to take me away in an ambulance ride. That was like $8,000. I had a lot of these experiences. Yeah, so I feel like I could probably write a book about that, because, I mean, it was amazing that, it was about 3 to 6 months, in the 3 to 6 month period after I finally opened up to these beings for help, that from these teachings that they were giving me personally, and also that I'd seen from other people working with these same beings about this school, and about how we can actually hack the school, basically hack our bodies, and how it just is not, this existence is not what we think that it is. And so I used these tools and these techniques to change my body, and it was like miracle. I was able to stop all the medications. I have not had an asthma attack since. I have not even had to see a doctor, except for once when I had too much hummus and my gallbladder I had a gallbladder attack. But besides that, yeah, I've been in really, really great health, and it's all completely by the wayside. And thank God. Thank God for that.
Do you think that it's, well, I mean, of course I don't want to hear that you suffer, obviously, but do you think it's in a way cheating, or do you think it's counterproductive to, as you put it, hack our bodies?
Absolutely not. There are a couple perspectives. In one hand, I was just talking to a client about this. In one hand, when somebody gets some kind of a disease, they say like we're choosing all of our experiences here for a reason, and it is to learn and grow. And like think of how much music is created from pain and suffering. I think of this girl Birdie who was on American's Got Talent, I think that show, and she had like end of life cancer, and she wrote this great song and she got famous and then she died from cancer. But I listen to that song and I'm like, I feel that. It's almost like she came here just to get cancer, get famous for a minute, give this song, and then die. And there was so much beauty in that. So, in one hand, when somebody gets a disease like that, you never really know, like from a soul perspective, what is the gift there and what are they choosing to experience. But on the other hand, this is a what they call a free will zone. Not all planets are set up this way, but for us, we're here with free will. And they say we use very, very, very little of it, although we have it because we're kind of like on a little bit of a hamster wheel. I don't know the percentage, but it's very low. I think it's like less than 10% of the time we're actually using our free will and we're just reacting to things. But when we start to use it and we're encouraged to do so, we get to choose because like, yeah, maybe when you came here, you decided, hey, I want to get cancer and I have this experience, but they're encouraging us that we can also choose to do that anymore. And so I think that was my situation because I got to have the experience of being really sick and suffering profoundly. And I got to have that experience. And I have a lot of compassion that do. And now I have the role of helping other people who have this and telling them, well, there's another way. There's these other perspectives. And another part of that is I won't get too much into the pharmaceutical industry and Western medicine and this and that, but I think everybody knows like the insurance companies, all of that, it's a little bit of a disaster. And we've kind of set ourselves up to be manipulated a little bit. And the manipulation only will continue to happen as long as we allow it. And it's almost like we're here and we're encouraged to be unhealthy in a lot of ways. And on one perspective, that's fine because they say we're infinite eternal beings. And basically, because what exists can't not exist by definition. And whatever we want to experience, we can and we can work it out. But and then from another perspective, it can become like an energy waste. It can be a waste of our time to spend time being sick and not feeling good, especially if we have something really creative that we want to give birth to, that's going to take time. Or if we have ways that we want to be of service to other people, that's going to take time. And so the less time that we spend being sick, we have more time to spending on these other things. And so for a planet to really enlighten and awaken, we're not going to have as much illness over time because we're going to choose basically to invest more of our time and energy in creativity and expression.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard across, many cultures and many religions and many philosophies, the concept of being one, we're all one collective consciousness. So does that mean that the beings that you have had contact with, the beings that you continue to work with to this day, is everything in the universe? Or is it all compartmentalized? Is it like you and I are we just sharing a consciousness that's been split and I've been assigned to, or I've taken on this form, and when we die, you and I will become one again?
There's so much that I don't know because my intelligence and my understanding is so limited compared to them. So I'm sure, so many things because if you think about all of existence, about what could ever exist, it could go on literally forever. What I do know, what I have been told is that obviously this is not the only universe, that there are other universes that have an entirely different set of dynamics. They say in this universe, it's kind of set up with polarity. There's a dark, there's a light, and then there's integration, and it makes like a triangle. But they said in other universes, there's like 4 or like 5 or 6 different dynamics of things. So like here, like notice how like we're symmetrically like split in half, and like we reflect our other self, like half of ourself on our left and right sides of our body. And then when we see another person,
sorry to interrupt you. That's very much so what the political climate feels like today, like us versus them.
Exactly.
We feel very divided.
Yep. It's like split into 2, and it kind of balances out this way. And so, at least in this universe, I can say from what I understand is like, yes, we're all one integrated being and we split ourselves into all of these different eyes, and we split with the fundamental mechanics of duality. In other places, I think it's different. I will say there's going to be more similarity and resonance between different people, because they say it's like if all of existence is like one big ball, that like when it split into these other big balls, and then this ball split into other balls. So they call it like an oversoul and a soul. And so like one oversoul can have, I think they said it's something crazy, but that on this planet there are actually only something like maybe 200, 300,000 oversouls, and that each one of those has all of these different parallel lifetimes existing at a time. So you could share the same oversoul with some of your family or friends you don't really know, something like that. And they could be a little bit more similar to you than Joe across the street, who is of a different oversoul. So we have some more similarity with some beings more than other, but from the highest perspective, we all are kind of like the same existence of reality. And I would imagine that that extends to other universes as well, because if you just think about it fundamentally and how we're all kind of connected in existence, that there's not really separation. And that's kind of one of the number one things that they teach, is that like we exist, we all exist, and we're all always connected in some way. And because we're all connected and we're all kind of in a way coming from the same place and containing the same things, like we're all energy, we're all light, we're all frequency, that it's like we're just not really that different. It's just like it's evolved over time. Like if you think of the Big Bang, basically, on just a physical level, it was like one little particle of whatever the heck it was, but it was keyword one. And then it expanded out into matter, and the matter made the stars, and the stars made this, and then you have planets over here that have this beings and that have plants and this and that. But even this planet, like genetically, we're like closely related to a banana. So we're really not all that different, so it would make sense.
When you talk about their teachings and working with them and coming to know more about this, like what does something like that look like? And because you're speaking to me kind of like from like a teacher to a student dynamic here. I mean, but like how did you come to know these things? How did you become in a position to be able to talk on these things? And kind of, because like speaking as fact in a way, like how do you have the authority to do that?
Studying.
But how does that? What does that mean though?
So I will say this is a belief zone where you can hold a belief, and this is something they've taught me. You can hold a belief about your reality and it can seem true, but what they've told me, it doesn't mean that it's true from a higher perspective. Like an example they gave me, because I was like, oh, like if I believe this is true enough, can I literally change to a whole new reality where like this is true? And they said like there was a couch, and they said like the couch was tan, and they were like, you could tell us that you believe that this chair is purple, and you can believe that it's purple, you can see that it's purple, but we're not going to ever tell you that it's purple, because from a higher perspective, like it's tan. And so it's that kind of a thing, like, and it makes sense, like how somebody can have almost the illusion of a situation, like that they're in with somebody else and they think somebody said something, and like they can think it's true, and it might not actually really be true, and it is what it is. So we have a lot of like our own projected beliefs about reality. So I tend to try to give as much more higher truths as I can that I've learned from them. And it takes a lot of discernment, and it's taken a long time and a lot of studying of a lot of different things that to find stuff that's more credential than others and more in alignment with what you could say higher truths. Because a lot of people who do this kind of work and talk about this stuff, like if you were to dig into it and you'll find that a lot of people, it's like their messages they get are not quite as clear. And that's something that's important to note about channeling and getting messages from them, is because they're from like these higher dimensions, these different realities that are so different from ours, their consciousness, it's like beyond what we can conceptualize. And so they have to use our personality, our ego, like, and the concepts of reality that we have in this world to become as a translator device. And so anybody who's ever receiving these messages, they have to keep that in mind. No matter how like clear and neutral they are, it's like you're pulling something that's in a completely different language from a completely different dimension of existence and trying to translate it and make sense of it. And I'll say, really, it just comes down to seeing, like, of all the different people, and they're saying these different things, and like what's being said the most by all of these, like, because a lot of them, they say the same thing basically through all of these different people, and that's when you know it's likely that that's probably holding some higher truth. Like if the same message is being brought through in the same way through hundreds, thousands of people, it's more likely to hold some higher truth than some random person who's talking about, like, you know, there's some evil alien who's coming to feed on your children or something like that. And although they might think that that's true, it's, you know, it's probably not.
And you've mentioned in what you just said that you said that they say. So when you are communicating with ETs, are you hearing voices? Are you astral projecting? How does that work?
All of the above. So they encourage us to use every method that we can to bring them through more in the clearest way possible, because of course they want to come through in a clear way. They don't want things to come through that's distorted with fear. And so like one thing that's important to know is, like, one of the higher truths is that because we're all one, and they all say we exist as love. Love is really just like the force that brings us back together to a unified state. So anything that appears to come through aliens or anybody else that's perpetuating some fear-based reality, that's based on separation, that's based on I need to control or manipulate or be in fear, is not like a higher truth and not of a higher light, because we are all one in that way. Like love and service is the force that is going to help us expand and evolve. And that's always going to be the higher part of us that we're here to anchor into. But yeah, so how they communicate, because they're so far out there, and a lot of them, they don't even communicate in their own species at that point. A lot of them have evolved past communicating with language and with their mouths, and some of them don't even have mouths anymore. I communicate with some who don't even have mouths. They communicate strictly telepathically, and they communicate in their minds. A lot of them, most of them, I would say, that I work with through like movies in their mind. So like if they were to communicate like, hey, I want you to get me a glass of water, like they would telepathically send a movie of like you going and picking up a glass of water and bringing it to them. Because for them, that it's more clear, it's more to the point. And also it includes like emotion and feelings in it as well. So instead of like just sending like a video of like, hey, get me a glass of water, like what's also included in that is like, oh, hey, if you go get me a glass of water, like when you give it to me, I'm going to feel grateful, like, and thank you. So it includes that emotion in it as well, because they're all very highly emotional beings also. And so when we are trying to translate what they're saying, we also want to include the emotion that's coming through, because that's a very important part. Because yes, they're extremely intelligent, but their emotions are just as valuable, because their emotions, their ability to feel, it's like what gives them the ability to have compassion, to empathize, and to want to care and to want to help in that way. And that's what love is. Love is an emotion, and love is the driving force of existence. And so when we're able to like paint or draw or through music, especially, like a lot of music has been influenced by ETs and higher beings that people might not even know. And in music, especially in artwork in general, like some of the emotion comes through like what they're trying to communicate. But yeah, so writing, hearing things, I see things a lot just in my mind. Like if something's important, sometimes like I'll see like it's almost like a screen in my mind, and like in bright red letters they like write a message, like if there's something they want me to know. Yeah, or it can feel like hearing a thought that you know is not yours in your mind. Or my favorite way to communicate with them is something called teleempathy, where it's like telepathy and empathy combined, where I can feel what they're communicating, and that's provided the most healing and the most expansive, amazing thing ever for me personally. Because yes, all of the information is great. I'm very cerebral. I enjoy it. It's great to understand why the heck are we here and to try and wrap my brain around that and get really philosophical. But for me, just as like as a human who's been through a lot in my life, they can show me how they feel for me in times when I've needed it most. And it's like I link up to them and I can just feel the support and the love. And it's like I can feel like I'm like receiving a hug, I would say, is not even really giving the full picture of it, but it's like I'm feeling like I'm one with them, like I'm completely held by them, and like I'm held by all of existence in a way, if that makes sense. And like in that way, they're able to communicate to me just through feeling, like this feeling that things are not quite as serious as they seem, and that everything that I'm worried about, I don't need to worry about as much, and that I'm okay, and that I'm accepted as I am, and that like things are going somewhere and I just don't see it yet, and that there's a purpose to my pain. And so they have an ability in a way to communicate all of that just through like feeling, if that makes sense.
Okay. So it's, I mean, definitely. I mean, these are like concepts that I wouldn't have even considered before you said them about. Because, like, I mean, in my mind, it's like communication's very direct. It's like you and I are speaking right now, but the concept, and I get like them being able to send over emotions or stories or music, and it encourages us to feel a certain way, and then that was their outcome that they wanted to communicate to begin with. Huh. That's an
Yeah.
interesting concept.
I mean, I think it's because they become so. I mean, it's like if you were to imagine like the Buddha of all Buddhas that's enlightened and is also has like the biggest brain on the planet times a million. It's like they're so, a lot of them, they're so intelligent and enlightened that just English and words, like it just can't bring it through, basically.
Yeah,
Not
because
to
I mean,
say that, not
sometimes.
to say that we're like dirt down here because like we use English, like they've all in their previous civilizations like used English, but like you reach a point where you have to evolve past that. And they say that we're going to evolve past that here on this planet too, a lot more quickly than we think, and we're already doing it. Like if you have these moments where like you're thinking of somebody and then they text you, like I think that happens to everybody, and it's going to keep happening because we are actually communicating to each other in this way. We're just not recognizing it yet.
Um, so you did mention earlier in our conversation that there have been a lot of things in the news, and I've noticed this as well. I mean, I remember, like, I have a close friend that lives in New Jersey, and I remember seeing like news articles like UFOs or drones or something were seen. And you know, I mean, you always hear about like Arizona and Nevada, like very spacious, flat, deserty type areas. A lot of UFOs are looked at and noticed in the sky. And you mentioned that in the coming years, this will come to even be more prevalent. Do you have any more comments on what that is, like what people are seeing and what that might look like?
Yeah. I'm glad that you asked because this is an important part of it. And so I want to just talk briefly about the government and the connection there because I think that it's important. So, of course, the government that we know in modern government has known about ETs pretty much for all time. And a lot of these older things, the Illuminati, whatever organizations, of course, they have as well and have been in contact with different ETs. I will say there's been contact with ETs who are not quite as integrated in our history on the planet, that you would say lean more towards negative, like because they're just like us in a way. Like they had to evolve and learn how to not manipulate, abuse, and kill. And like so, but now at this point in the planet, we're strictly working with those who are enlightened, who have integrated, because we're reflecting that readiness. But in the past, there's been a lot of work with them. But basically, around the time of the A bomb, there was So I'll say there's different names for it, but all of the ETs, they basically join, and some people have different names, like the Galactic Council, the Galactic Federation, Interstellar Alliance, the Association of Worlds, different names that all mean the same thing. And it's like all of these ETs who have reached a certain level all work in harmony together, and they go out together to help planets enlighten and evolve. So they basically came to the Earth. Of course, they were already working with the Earth throughout all of its history. But they saw an opening, and so they were thinking, hey, let's offer them our help. Like, we'll give you some teachings, we'll help you out, but you have to admit that you have been working with, like, that that we're here, that you've had meetings with us. But basically, of course, like you would think at that time, the government doesn't want the control that they perceive to have, that the world thinks that they have, to be taken away. Because what happens when everybody thinks, oh, the government's in control and has power, and then there's aliens that are like clearly much more advanced, and then it's like people are not going to put as much stock in the government. And so of course the government was planning to and wanted to use their information, because of course they have things like free energy and all of these crazy technologies, and the government was opting and veering towards using that for war and domination. So the ETs, of course, they were like, okay, we're not going to interact then at this time, and they knew they had to let us kind of venture through this until we kind of have another point where it's going to reach that point. And this will just kind of would keep happening until it's like we show that we're really, really ready to use the teachings and the things that they offer to unify and to be more of service to one another and not kill each other. So one of the things that's been brought through by a couple of people, reputable people that I know who's working with these higher beings, is that a lot of the UFOs and the UAPs, I mean, some of that I'm sure is just different countries playing different games with each other. But what we want to be on the lookout is that the governments, what they would like to do, and I guess this happens on other planets, and that it's not really a big deal because the ETs are, of course, so much more evolved and advanced. It's not really a problem for them to nip this in the bud when it happens, but it can create a lot of fear and a lot of panic. And fear and panic is one way that the governments use to control people. And so what they may begin to do is to stage hoax alien invasions to perpetuate fear that, like, the aliens want to hurt us and we need to band together and start a war. And what's that going to be? Like, people are going to invest money in weapons and this and that. And it's going to create an energy for people where they might want to trust the government and hate the aliens, which the aliens are just here really to help us. And so that's something we want to be on the lookout. Is that happening to some degree? I can't say for certain, and with each instance of like a ship sighting, when that's happening, when it's not, but it's definitely something that everybody should be aware of to question it. Like, if there's ever like a landing in DC or somewhere and it's like aliens come out with guns and they're like ready to like start a war, that it's not going to be the actual aliens who are enlightened, who have evolved past that. Which, if you would think, it would make sense that for a species on a planet to become so intelligent and expansive that they're able to actually leave their planet and go to other planets in a way, and like, you have to reach a certain level of consciousness. So if that were to happen, it's not going to be actual aliens, it's going to be the government. Because that's just not reality, that we're not working with evil aliens at this time. But a lot of the ship sightings are actual real ships. And from the aliens' perspective, the ETs, each ship or each out of the ordinary phenomena that somebody sees, it's like an invitation for them and their consciousness to go behind the walls of this reality. And that's going to happen more and more and more, because this planet as a whole, like for each soul who's here, like the collective consciousness we've chosen to basically awaken to the next stage of development, because there's like 3 stages of development. The first stage is like when you're like children, you're learning how to live and like how to like not kill each other and kill yourselves and kill the planet. And the next stage of development, which is what we're very quickly moving into, is when you're learning how to really harmonize with each other and you're living in harmony and you live knowing that we're all one being and that we kind of have to care about our neighbor and that we want to care about our neighbor because they're just another part of us, and that we're really not that different. And then the third stage is like when everybody's basically enlightened as a species, and that's when a lot of them start not even having physical bodies because they don't need that experience, and then they help other people from like a higher perspective of just like presence that's just loving and seeing and just like helping people out from here and there who are needing it. And so we're getting all of this help in many different ways in the spaceship sightings, and also other weird things. Like a lot of people who I talk to have been having weird sleep experiences where like they think it could even be scary sometimes, where I've even had friends who have come to me and they've said, hey, like I've been seeing aliens like when I'm sleeping and like having these weird interactions, and it's all with the same intent to help us open up a little bit to things that are beyond our scope of understanding of reality. And it's all to get us comfortable and prepare for open contact, which is imminent, which will happen no matter what the governments do, because we've all chosen this, because this planet is a school, and because it's a school, for the ETs and the people who are in charge of the school, it's going to remain a school. They're not going to let us destroy it because it's here to serve a purpose. And so open contact is when everybody on the planet knows that the aliens have been here all along, that we're all part alien, that we're all coming in part from aliens, and that we're all kind of one being, and a lot of the teachings and the things are going to be given, and that's when we're really going to propel into enlightenment. And of course, as I'm reminded to say, it doesn't mean they're going to save us in this process, but It's more that we're syncing up closer to their level of reality where we're ready and we're open, and so many more people, more than ever, are starting to actually feel and be in their heart space and open up and want to receive help and want to use that help for good. And because of that, all of these beings, they're here and they're ready to help. And it's like there's like a natural flow of existence of like, if you think of the Big Bang, like we're integrated, we expand out, and then we kind of go back. It's like a natural flow that we're a part of, that we can't really stop that flow. And for us, that means we're going to have open contact, and the spaceships are a part of that. And so in the next few years, especially, we're going to see it completely continue to speed up. And I wouldn't be surprised if you have a weird experience yourself after we have this discussion, because that happens a lot with people that I talk to about this.
Okay. I mean, the concept of you kind of communicating that ETs could intervene if oppositional forces become too
oppressive,
powerful and oppressive. And there are some people out there that feel that that's how it has been the past 10 years, 10, 20 years, whatever. So like, if this is all a school and this is all the concept of to learn and everything, if we're hurting ourselves too much, or if we're creating too many roadblocks that's preventing us from accomplishing what we're here to do, the intervention, deliberate, like kind of coming in and adjusting the rules and adjusting if like one area gets too much power, checks and balances.
Yeah, and so I will share, like I'm getting some messages from them as I'm talking to you about kind of how to guide this. And something that they're saying is that the intervention is already taking place and has already been taking place, and that one of the ways that they're doing it is that they're having contact with individuals like me, like other people, and they're giving us the tools that we're open, and we're using these tools and we're putting it out into the world. And so that's happening on a global scale, and that's only going to increase. So like the intervention it's really already is happening, and it's gonna reach the point where it's like the scales are gonna tip, where so many more people are gonna begin to have this individual contact and are gonna wake up to more of the truth of who they are and what this is and what this reality is, that it's like everybody, it's just gonna spread like wildfire, I guess you could say. But yes, like, I have heard, like, if there was somebody who had a nuclear button, that the ETs, of course, have the ability to say, like, that's not going to happen. We're not going to let you kill the whole school.
All right. Well,
but there is a lot of natural cycles of events and things that, to some degree, like, they have to let us play it out.
Yeah.
And we do all have free will. Like if there was like an ice age or something like that, like something that they've told me about climate change is that humans are extremely adaptable. So if something happens, like, and what if we kind of agreed as a collective to experience that, we'd experience that, and it probably would be unlikely to wipe us out, but it might make it really difficult. And so in that way, like to some degree, they'd have to take a step back and let us journey through that, because from their perspective, like many of them, they're literally beyond like time. They don't even have time and space in the way that we do, and they will never die unless they choose to like forget who they are and put on a new costume, I guess you could say. So from their perspective, they could see like if we need like 1,000 years or something and an ice age to enlighten and explore who we are, like they're not going to take that away from us because they can see where we're going. But I'll share something that would make sense is in I don't know if this applies to the whole universe. I know this applies to the Milky Way galaxy. So if there's like think of like an oval, and it's like a cycle, and one cycle it's like it's like a separation and masculine state, where it's like we're more like in a sleep about who we are, and we want to fight for resources a little bit. Not that there's something mad about masculine energy, but it's just like a natural way of being, and it's part of it, and we need both. But the masculine energy is, yeah, it's more about kind of like power and control and staying secure in your reality. And the feminine energy is more expansive, like curious, wanting to go out into the unknown, go beyond the confines of reality, and also being in more flow and being more in trust and intuition. And so there's a 26,000 year cycle that we're in this galaxy, on this planet, where 13,000 years are in the yang and the masculine energy, and 13,000 years are in the yin and the feminine energy. And so in the yin energy, that's when we see our enlightenment phase. And so we go through this cycle, and the Mayans, they knew about this. And so 2012, when they thought was that like the end of the world or whatever, the end of the Mayan calendar, that was actually the end of the yang cycle. So it was the end of the world as we know it, because it was the end of the yang cycle. And so we're 13 years into the yin cycle, and because it goes in an arch, we're only going to see more and more and more of that. So in the next, a little bit less than 13,000 years, we're going to see more and more and more expanse and enlightenment. And if it's enough, because basically for all species, if we enlighten and expand enough, we won't go to sleep again. So like Atlantis, if you've heard of that, what happened is that was a yang cycle where we basically, like in the yin before that, we didn't quite figure it out. We developed technology and we didn't quite figure out how to use it for good. So we kind of had to go through another cycle. But now a lot of us were here to heal that and integrate like how to use technology for good and evolution. But I would say at this point, it's probably likely that we're going to be able to not go to sleep again as a species and fully enlightened. But if we don't in this cycle, we just have to do it again. But for them, it's like, oh, what's another 13,000 years? For them, it's nothing. To us, it seems like a big deal, but it's really not a big deal if we're infinite beings.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've definitely introduced a lot of concepts that would be a lot more detailed out than the hour that we've spoke. So I suppose to wrap everything up that we've talked about today, is there anything that you would like to leave the viewership with?
Yeah, I guess to wrap it up, I'll say that the biggest messages, the most important ones that they have to give at this time, is just that everybody here is really, really loved as they are. And that there's a point to all of this. There is. And even if we don't see it, and to not lose faith in the situation that you see unfolding around you, that it might seem a little bit dark and scary, and we might even have on the news and stuff given reason to think that we're so far worse than we used to be. And that's really not true. If you think about it, several hundred years ago, we would hang somebody with a live audience for like stealing a potato. Dumb stuff like that. So we've actually come a long way. And I think because we just remember being in this lifetime, we forget that. And we think because we have wars and this and that we're really messing up, but we're really, really not. And there's a lot of hope that we're going to continue to, and hope is not even a good word. It's more like it's inevitable that we will evolve because we are eternal. And all of the beings who are working with the earth at this time, they truly do want to help. And for each person who is listening or watching this, if you're interested in making contact, like I said, you definitely can. It starts with an invitation and a let go of expectations, because it does take time. I mean, it took years for me, because I felt like when I was a teenager, I had weird experiences, like they were willing to make contact and I wasn't ready yet. So it can take years of experiencing the skepticism and the doubt, and also just not wanting to open your consciousness and your mind up to things that are out there, because it is scary. That's something that I'll say, even though I've been doing this for a long time. It's scary. It's still scary for me when I see these beings that look totally crazy. They feel totally crazy, and I can feel that they love, but I'm like, but you look freaky. Like, you look really, really scary. Like, please don't show me this. Don't show me this again while I'm going to sleep. Like, it feels like a nightmare, even though like the love is there. But so it can take time. But if anybody wishes to give an invitation to connect to these beings, one of the best ways is before you go to sleep to kind of just make an open invitation, and they can read your thoughts. They can definitely read your thoughts. They can hear you if you were to say something and you appear to be alone. And so if you just kind of give that invitation and that openness, especially before you go to sleep, like to connect with them during your sleep time, and they communicate in a lot of different ways. So you might just have a dream or a weird feeling, or you might even feel chills. A lot of people feel chills in their body when they're getting contact, or just like, hearing a thought that you know wasn't yours, or even hearing a song just start playing in your head that is special to you out of nowhere. These are all ways that they communicate. And once you start opening up to that, it can kind of continue to go on from there. So the invitation is open from all alien enlightened beings to everybody who's watching, that if you want to make contact, it's up to you to choose that. They won't force themselves really onto anybody without consent on some level. And everybody already has consented to that contact from a soul perspective and is experiencing contact at night already. But it's more that you're willing to give consent in your more waking state with who you are and you're understanding yourself to be.
And so concludes our interview here today. Be sure to let me and everyone else know what you thought of this video, any of the topics or anything that was addressed in this video in the comments below. Let's try to have a fun, open-minded, unique discussion. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. I really appreciate your time, and so does Kelly. Again, I will put all of her socials in the description below. Let me know what you think. I'll see you soon.